Biomolecules is a broad spectrum of a field in chemistry, and this is further divided into three parts: bioorganic, bioinorganic, and bioelectronic. Our main objective for today is to study mainly bioorganic part. Bioorganic part would have lot of uh, biomolecule compounds which we categorized as different groups. We call them as carbohydrates, proteins, proteins which are nothing but amino acids, then nucleic acids, DNA and RNA, lipids, what we call it as fats, correct, and some more vitamins and hormones. These are all bioorganic compounds or biomolecules. Okay. So, in generally, when it comes to biomolecules, the most useful or the study which we have to be exhaustively doing is about carbohydrates and proteins. Now, in generally, when it comes to carbohydrates, what we will see, suppose if we take a leaf of plant, it usually consumes carbon dioxide and water. In the presence of light and a catalyst, or what we call it as the enzyme called chlorophyll, using that it would form glucose. And most important source on our earth, especially for energy through carbohydrates, comes from glucose. And this glucose is further useful in forming amino acids, okay, fats, vitamins, etc. At the same time, it becomes a part of glycogen. Glycogen is a glucose starch form present in animals, okay, mainly stored in liver. So through blood, the glucose converts into glycogen, and glycogen can also convert into glucose. Right. Another important source of carbohydrates is starch. Okay, mainly that is stored in our body. A starch is not stored completely as a uh, form, but we consume it through fruits, food, and all other ways. Okay, so that is starch, which can be interconvertible to glucose. And another source is cellulose. If you see all the plant cells, they are if you see the plant body, the structure of the body of the plants, right, they are all made up of cellulose, especially the paper, correct, the paper which we make, the paper on which we are writing, that is made up of again cellulose. So in short, my idea is to make you understand that the source of glucose is converting into so many different biochemicals, bioorganic molecules. Starch is the best source, which is found in food. Cellulose is found in cotton, linen, wood, paper, and we will be using in that. So this is a small introduction of biomolecules, especially carbohydrates. One second. Now, let me introduce to carbohydrates by definition. Earlier in the days, carbohydrates were defined as hydrates of carbon. Hydrates of carbon as in carbon, x number of moles of carbon and some y number of moles of water, right. which was pretty much fitting into the definition of glucose, fructose, sucrose, and so on, like C6H2O6, sucrose, which is C12, okay, H2O11, right? But on the other hand, acetic acid, which is normally written as CH3COH, is also fitting in the definition as C2H2O twice. But this is not a simple hydrate of carbon, right? And this does not have any properties of carbohydrates. Another problem is if it comes to a compound like C6H12O5, what we call it as rannose. Rannose is not having this kind of a form where it could be said H2O 6 times. So you can see one oxygen is missing out. So which means we can't be able to write this. But yet this is a carbohydrate. It is a carbohydrate. Rannose is a carbohydrate. Which means we got to slightly change this definition of carbohydrates as a simple hydrates of carbon, right? So the new definition that was evolved over the time was any optically active polyhydroxy, okay, aldehydes, polyhydroxyaldehyde or ketones. Any optically active polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones or any such compounds which produce these on hydrolysis. Alright. So if there is a compound on hydrolysis, if it is producing any polyhydroxyaldehyde or ketone, we can classify or we can define it as a carbohydrate. Okay, that makes this that makes sense for as a new definition of carbohydrates. Next, the classification of carbohydrates. What are the various ways we can classify carbohydrates? Let us see. First, on the basis of functional group. If you have polyhydroxyaldehydes, got it? All aldehydes were given as one family of functional groups within the carbohydrates. For example, glucose. Glucose belongs to the family of polyhydroxyaldehydes. Similarly, fructose. Fructose belongs to the family of polyhydroxyketones. So within the carbohydrates, the first classification is whether they are polyhydroxyaldehydes or whether they are ketones. Okay, so this is the first distinction. Second distinction is their reducing nature. Okay, so whether these polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones can be reducing sugars or non-reducing sugars. For instance, if you take glucose, fructose, okay, lactose, mannose, these are all the carbohydrates which are reducing sugars, while sucrose, starch, cellulose, these are all non-reducing sugars. Reducing sugars means they should be able to reduce Tollens reagent. Well, not just Tollens, we can take Fehling's, Benedict or Fehling, Benedict or Tollens, any of these three, and it should be able to reduce it. If you recall what was Tollens reagent, it is ammonical silver hydroxide, right? If we take this and treat with aldehydes, regular aldehydes, we know that they will convert into acids and will get a silver mirror of Ag, precipitate. We say this as silver mirror test. So what it has done, this has reduced the silver salt, hence they are called reducing sugars. Okay, what are the other forms which will reduce them? If we just recall about Tollens reagent, we know that alpha hydroxy aldehydes are ketones. They will also give positive test towards Tollens reagent. At the same time, hydroxylamine, hydroxylamines will also give, that is hydroxyl amines will also give positive test towards Tollens, Fehling's and Benedict's. Well, triple bond will also give positive test, but this is not a reducing form. It is just a precipitate. For if you need to test for a precipitate form, then it is correct, right? So we will get a white PPT here. Our main purpose here is aldehydes and alpha hydroxy aldehydes and ketones. These two are very essential for us, and these two will tell us whether our carbohydrate is a reducing sugar or a non-reducing sugar. I guess this point is clear. Okay, there is one more group which is very important for us, which is hemiacetals. Hemiacetals also, if we treat in any aqueous basic medium or alkaline medium, definitely first it will, because hemiacetal is being unstable, it will convert into aldehyde. So first hemiacetal in alkaline medium. So hemiacetal in alkaline medium, first it will convert into an aldehyde form, and from there Tollens reagent will get reduced by these aldehydes. But when it comes to aqueous medium, acetals are stable, right? So they are stable forms, while these are unstable forms. Hence, if there is an acetal form, then it is a non-reducing sugar. The best example is sucrose. The best example here is sucrose. Everybody got this idea now? What is the reducing sugar and non-reducing sugar? Okay. This is the general structure of glucose and fructose. There is hydrogen, hydrogen and hydrogen here, right? When glucose and fructose combine together, right, then we will get sucrose. How the structure looks like, we will discuss it, possibly in the next class. But as of now, just remember that glucose and fructose both combine to give sucrose, and sucrose is a acetal form, hence it is a non-reducing sugar. Okay. Next classification. Next classification is based upon the sweetness. Okay. Usually all monomers, all monosaccharides, these are all going to be, sweet in taste. So sweet in taste, they are sweet in taste. We say them as saccharides. And it is observed that all monoforms are sweet, hence we call it them as monosaccharide. Non-sugar as in their, not sweet in taste, okay, or pale in taste. You'll hardly feel any taste, especially when it comes to polysaccharides. Polysaccharides, like cellulose is the best example. Got it? So cellulose doesn't have a taste. It won't have a sweet taste. Okay, and generally this is the fundamental which you will see with polysaccharides. Polysaccharides will lose out their tasteness. Their sweet taste. Got it? And whenever saccharide is a Greek term which represents sugar, and to put it in the functional group form, it is known as saccharose. Saccharose. So henceforth we will be using this O's for sugar. See the next classification. This classification is on the basis of number of carbon atoms. Suppose if total number of carbon atoms in the carbohydrate is 3, we call it as tri, and it is a sugar, so we will add O's to that, so it will become triose. So if it is 4, it is tetrose. Got it? Tetraose. Tetrose. Pentaose. Pentose. Okay. Hexaose. Hexose. Got it? Suppose within this O's, and if you have an aldehyde group, suppose like glucose, glucose as an aldehyde group, and it is an hexose, right? So we will categorize them as aldose families, aldehydes which are sugars. Okay. Similarly, if we have fructose, for instance, we have this as keto group, and this is also in hexose. So we write this as ketose, aldose and ketose. Is this clear? Okay. Next classification is based upon the products of hydrolysis. Suppose if we have monosaccharides, monosaccharides means which do not undergo further hydrolysis. For example, if you take glucose, glucose do not split into even smaller carbohydrates. Glucose is the last form of that particular functional group's carbohydrate. It will not further hydrolyze. So those are called the monomer units. Got it? So all monomer units which do not undergo hydrolysis, they are termed as monosaccharides. Okay. Best examples for monosaccharides, these are glucose, fructose, okay, mannose, galactose. These are few examples. Next categorization is oligosaccharide. This is oligosaccharide. Oligo means it should have 2 to 10 monosaccharides in it. So 2 gives 2 to 10, right, types of monosaccharides. Okay. If it can 2 to 10 different types of 10 types of monosaccharides on hydrolysis, we say that as oligosaccharide. Acha, these types could be same or different also. It's not necessary that only 4 glucose molecules are coming, let's say, after hydrolysis. Still it is an oligosaccharide, okay? Got it? So let me take an example here. For example, if you take sucrose, sucrose on hydrolysis will get glucose, glucose and fructose. While maltose, maltose on hydrolysis will give 2 moles of glucose. So that is also an oligosaccharide. Okay. Similarly, if you take lactose, okay, lactose on hydrolysis will convert into glucose and galactose. So these are all oligosaccharides. I hope that is clear. One more example I'll give you. This is raffinose. Raffinose, which on hydrolysis will glucose, fructose and galactose. That is raffinose. So it is giving 3, right? So 2 to 10, all the monosaccharides, if you are getting on hydrolysis, we call them as oligosaccharides. Next is polysaccharides. Polysaccharides will give more than 10 units of monosaccharides. It will give more than 10 units of monosaccharides. For example, if you have this mono, these are all connected this way. Okay, and this is the polysaccharide which you have n moles of it. So then I require n minus 1 moles of H2O to completely convert them into n moles of monosaccharides. Like starch, okay, starch is a long form of glucoses. So on hydrolysis, the entire starch will convert into glucose. Got that? And just now we seen one thing, we can categorize the families into aldose and ketose. So while naming, all the monosaccharides, we first check out the family, okay, like whether it is aldehyde family, next check out number of carbons, and next whether it is sugar or not. Got it? So that's how we'll check out. For example, glucose, right? So glucose is what? Glucose is aldohexose. So it is aldohexose. Similarly, if you have ketone and then see the number of carbons, hex and O's, so this will become ketohexose. The best example is fructose. So you got to understand this. Sometimes questions will be given like this: which of the following are aldohexose? So you just have to check out the number of carbons and whether it is aldehyde or ketone. Okay. I hope all of you understood the classification. So carbohydrates can be classified into these 5 kinds. Now, out of all carbohydrates, for our syllabus, only one thing which is most important is glucose. So we got to learn about how to prepare glucose and how do we decide the exact structure of glucose, how it has been formed. These are all the things which we will learn now. See, first preparation, hydrolysis of sugarcane or sucrose, that will always give us glucose. For instance, if we take this sucrose and hydrolyze that, okay, in acidic medium, or we can take an enzyme which is invertase, that will give us C6H12O6 plus C6H12O6. It will give glucose and fructose. The commercial method to prepare glucose is take starch. Starch will be available, in any foods which we eat, right, from potatoes to rice to wheat, right, that, and hydrolyze it, okay, and heat it around 393 kelvins, 2 to 3 atm. Then slowly everything will get converted into glucose form. This is the commercial way of preparing glucose. Guess this is clear, right? So usually once you get this, okay, glucose will slowly crystallizes, and those crystals are the one which we'll take out as glucose. Got it? Next, if we need to determine the structure of glucose, how do we know that glucose has 6 carbons and it has a straight chain and it has so many hydroxy groups? How do we prove that? So to do that, to determine the structure, we have a particular procedure. Let us follow that. So first, using mass spectrography, we will be able to identify the exact molecular formula of glucose. So if we take glucose and analyze, if we will, then we will be able to claim that its molecular formula is C6H12O6. This is by mass spectrography. Okay. Then we can directly use NMR and see how many bonds are there. But using the lab methods, how do we identify and what are the number of hydroxy groups which we have, whether it is aldehyde, ketones, everything can be confirmed using lab tests. So let us see what are the tests we can do. First, suppose if we, because we know the formula now, if this glucose is treated with red phosphorus HI. Okay, on treatment with red phosphorus HI, it has been observed sorry, it has been observed that it would appear like 1 2 3 4 5 6 n-hexane. The final product which is forming is n-hexane. We know that, whether it is aldehyde, whether it is ketone, right, alcohol, okay, halides, all of this in the presence of red phosphorus and HI will get reduced to form alkanes. So you can see it is giving an alkane. So what does this claim? It tells us that there are no branches in it, correct? So glucose is a straight chain of 6 carbons. So it does not have any branches where there is any methyl or something. So all these carbons must have been in a straight chain now. So this is the first confirmation we can get using red phosphorus and HI. Okay. Next, if we treat that with hydroxylamine or HCN, suppose if there is any aldehyde or a keto group, you know that HCN and hydroxylamine both will react with carbonyl group. So if there is any carbonyl group, it will definitely react with it. Let's see that. What do we get? Because now we know the claim that it is a straight chain. Okay. If at all we get this product CHOH 4 times and CH2OH. Okay. So this is cyanohydrin of glucose. So cyanohydrin on hydrolysis will give carboxylic acid, right? COOH will get, we know that these cyanides will give COOH. So we'll get alpha hydroxy carboxylic acid. So again using NMR we can test this as well as the carboxylic acids. We can check out the pH, how it is changing. So we get a confirmation, sorry, HCN here, right? Yeah. So we get a confirmation that there is a cyanohydrin formation here, right? Which means there must have been some carbonyl group present. Okay. Hydroxylamine, NH2OH. Hydroxylamine will give oximes and all oximes are usually colored. So if there is a colored compound coming, it confirms the presence of carbonyl group, which is CH double bond NOH with CHOH 4 times and CH2OH. Okay, so both will confirm the presence of carbonyl group in glucose. Carbonyl group as in C double bond O. Okay, that could be an aldehyde or a ketone. As of now we have just confirmed that there is a carbonyl group present in it. Next, if you see bromine water, if we treat bromine water, right, with aldehyde or ketone, it will respond to aldehyde, correct? It do not respond to primary alcohols, it do not respond to ketones, but it will respond to aldehyde and further oxidize that into carboxylic acid. What you will observe that in case of Br2H2O, if we get this one COOH, CHOH 4 and CH2OH, right? So you can see it is a 6 carbon chain, straight chain. At the terminal carbon we have COH and all other carbons will have hydroxy groups. This is called gluconic acid. Okay, and it is coming from the family of aldehyde, so generally we call them as aldonic acids. Okay, because suppose if this was a mannose, then it will become mannonic acid. If it is galactose, galactonic acid. but all of them belong to which family of acids? Aldonic acids. These are all going to be aldonic acids. I guess this point is clear. So what is it confirming us? It is confirming the presence of Br2H2O, confirms the presence of aldehyde group, CHO group here. Okay. So bromine water will oxidize CHO into COOH. So that is confirming us the case that it is presence of CHO group. It does not respond to primary, secondary alcohols. It will only respond to aldehydes. I hope all of you understood so far. So see, one revealing we are doing. First we started revealing that carbon glucose is a straight chain. Second, there is a carbonyl group present. That carbonyl group is aldehyde. So far we have confirmed this. Okay. Next, we react with anhydride in the presence of pyridine. So we can expect any alcohol form which is present to convert into esters. We just recently learned in carboxylic acids that alcohols, when we treat with anhydrides, will form esters. So what we will observe here is that CHO, CH, this OH will convert into OAC 4 times and CH2 OAC. Okay. So here if you check out the number of acetate groups, right, this we have done as a problem. If you recall, we used to replace with methoxy groups in one of the uh, in ether chapter. We have done Zieschel's method, something like that, if you recall. Similarly here also, if you count the molar mass of this and molar mass of this, you will get a difference of 5 acetate groups. Got it? So what we are getting is a glucose pentaacetate group, right? So pentaacetate group means this plus I will get CH3 COOH. How many moles of that? 5 moles of it. So I will calculate the number of moles of acid which are coming here, acetic acid which are coming here. So I get to know that if 5 moles are coming, which means there are 5 hydroxy group which must be present in that molecule. Imagine this, if this is a straight chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, and one carbon is already occupied with aldehyde, and all hydroxy, there are 5 hydroxy group that has to be placed, and we know that 2 hydroxy groups cannot be hold on one carbon. This is unstable, right? So then the hydroxy group has to be in this form only. Every OH group has to be on one carbon simultaneously. Got it? So this confirms, this is confirmation from this fifth test, that it confirms the presence of hydroxy groups on each carbon except CHO, right? Excluding that carbon, on each carbon there is an hydroxy group present. So far clear, everyone? So more or less we found the structure of glucose, right? So this gives a complete structure of glucose, how it exists. Now because it has chiral centers, you can see it has a lot of chiral centers here. So chiral center 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 chiral centers. That means I have 16 different stereoisomers that can come. Out of those 16, only one will be the glucose form, right? Out of all those 16, one will be the glucose form. That can be learned using stereochemical Fischer projections. So basically, if we keep drawing all the Fischer projections, we will get 16 forms. Out of that, one form will be of glucose. So that we have to check out experimentally and identify which of the following is glucose, and that leads to the idea that glucose will be a structure like this: OH, H, OH, H, OH, OH, H, H. Okay. What you will find here is this is R, S, R and R. This is how the uh, relative configuration would be. Okay. Now this representation of glucose, if you write as the IUPAC name, you can write this as 2R, 3S, 4R, 5R, and this is right. So this entire carbon is 6, so this is hexanal with 5 hydroxy at every location. So you have to show that as 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pentahydroxy hexanal with configuration of 2R, 3S, 4R, 5R. I hope this point is clear, everyone. Now this form which you get here, what I have written here, this is called D-glucose. Capital D. Remember, it is not small d, it is capital D. The mirror image of this D-glucose is referred as L-glucose, capital L-glucose. This is referred to be as capital D-glucose, this is referred to be as capital L-glucose. Now, how come this difference is? What is this capital D and capital L? How do we designate that? That is what we will study, okay, and see. Now, let me show you that. Suppose, if you consider this as the D-glucose, why we are always writing CHO up and CH2OH down? Now, if you see that the first carbon CHO which is present, which is connected with the second carbon here, this is the first carbon and second carbon. See the oxidation state of the first carbon here. The oxidation state of first carbon, it is losing 2 electrons to oxygen here, so +2, it is gaining 1 electron from hydrogen, -1, okay, and it is gaining 1 electron from carbon, correct, so it is -1 here. So totally we have 0 oxidation state here, alright. See the next carbon here, we have this OH, it is losing as +1 here, it is gaining 1 here, no change here, but it is losing 1 here, correct, so -1, +1. So overall this carbon is getting +1, correct, the second carbon is getting +1. Now if you keep going down here, you check which has the highest oxidation state and check which has the lowest oxidation state. See the last carbon here now. The last carbon has connection with, this is carbon 6 and this is 5. So this is connection with 5. On 5 there is no loss or gain here, but here it will gain by 1 electron, it will gain by 1 electron, it will lose by 1 electron. So what we will see that here, this has -1 oxidation state. So we will see which is the highest oxidation state, got it, and which is the lowest oxidation state. Okay, so we will check out for the highest to lowest always. So the lowest should always be placed at the bottom. Okay, it's not. The lowest oxidation state should always be placed at the bottom as per the convention of Fischer projection. So we will always place this CH2OH down here. Now, how exactly this word D is coming? Let us focus on that. Now, if you consider glyceraldehyde, okay, this is the smallest carbohydrate which we can think about, because by definition, check it out, it should be polyhydroxy, it should be an aldehyde or a ketone, and it should have a chiral center. It should be optically active, right? So all these definitions is fulfilled by 3 carbon. We cannot imagine anything less than 3 carbon to have chiral center also and fulfilling that polyhydroxy condition as well. So this is the smallest carbohydrate which we can imagine, This carbohydrate's name is glyceraldehyde. Glyceraldehyde. And within glyceraldehyde, if you check it out, according to CIP rules, if at all I give the priority to all of them, you can see first priority would be for OH, second priority would be for CHO, third priority here, and fourth priority here. And we usually make sure that the lowest priority group comes in the bottom, right? And to get that bottom, I have to make even number of exchanges, correct? So 3 can come here, 1 can come here, 2 can come here. So I made 2 exchanges. By making 2 exchanges, I can bring this 4 to be at the bottom. So we can judge here also, you can do here also, that's okay. I'm just following the convention, okay. So according to Fisher proposition, he tells us that bring the lowest priority to the bottom and see how rest of the 3 are moving. If they are moving clockwise, which means it is dextro, it will be R configured, and since it is a single chiral center, R configuration will always follow the dextro rotation on the polarimeter. So which means you will get this as dextro rotation on polarimeter. Dextro means clockwise rotation, and for a single chiral center, you know that we call it as R configured. So we will get an R configured glyceraldehyde. So which means when you have dextro rotation, the solution is designated as small d, right? Because small d and small l are based upon the observation reading. Okay, so the observed reading, if it is clockwise on the polarimeter, we say it is dextro. If it is anti-clockwise, we call it as levo, and we write small l, correct? So we take this as the reference for all the sugars now. So henceforth, what we will observe, that all the sugars which we will be considering, got it, will show this dextro rotation, got it? And this is for glyceraldehyde. But for glucose, if you check out for glucose, we have so many different chirals, we have 4 different chiral centers. And here it may be R configured, S, R, R, but magnitude of all of those together will give us whether it is clockwise or anti-clockwise rotation, right? But what we are doing, we are taking glyceraldehyde as the reference, and we call it as D-glyceraldehyde, capital D glyceraldehyde, from the dextrorotatory glyceraldehyde, saying that if we take dextrorotatory glyceraldehyde and see this carbon, last carbon here, except this group, everything else is a form of glyceraldehyde only. So we can imagine as if glucose is derived from glyceraldehyde family. Which glyceraldehyde? D-glyceraldehyde family. So hence we call this as D sugar or D glucose. So this capital D is always with designation of the last chiral center in the carbohydrates. So if we take any carbohydrate, we check out the last carbon, which is chiral center, which is connected to the lowest oxidation state carbon, right? On that we will check out what will be the position of OH and H. If they replicate D-glyceraldehyde, then this is a D sugar. Okay. If OH is on left hand side, then that is L sugar, capital L sugar. For instance, here you can check this OH is on the left hand side, then this is a capital L glucose. So it is derived from capital L glyceraldehyde family. I suppose all of you understood that, right? So all of these forms which you have OH, H this way, this is called D sugar family. Okay. All the examples here you can see this is also a D sugar family. These are all D sugars. Okay. Now our question is, I told you that glucose can be derived from glyceraldehyde, which means I can use glyceraldehyde as the ancient form, and from there I am slowly evolving towards glucose. Can I do that? Right? That is our next question. So yes, we can increase the process of, we can increase the hydroxycarbon groups, right, and increase the chain length, and that process is called Fischer-Kilani. I'll show you what it is. Okay. See, I took the basic glyceraldehyde. Okay, be with me on this, everyone. And this is D-glyceraldehyde. D-glyceraldehyde, and if I treat that with HCN, we will get cyanohydrin here, which means I'll get OH and cyanohydrin here. Well, this is an sp2 carbon. This is an sp2 carbon. So addition can happen from both ends. So I will get both these configurations, correct? So I will get two diastereomers here. So with this as the chiral center changing, okay? Now suppose if I treat this mixture with H2 palladium barium sulfate, got it, or and hydrolysis followed by hydrolysis, got it, or I can use dibal H and H3O plus, got it, or I can use Stephens reduction, SnCl2 concentrated HCl, any of that. Okay. So basically cyanides in the presence of palladium barium sulfate, first they will convert into imides, okay, which means if I take R C triple bond N and treat that with H2 palladium barium sulfate, right? So we will get this as RCH double bond NH, because you know that when palladium is poisoned, it cannot convert this double bond into single bond. We will get this imines, and that on hydrolysis we will get RCH double bond O plus NH3. You know that imide hydrolysis, imines are unstable in aqueous solutions, and they will immediately get back to aldehyde forms, right? So aldehyde will be formed, ammonia will come out, and this aldehyde, this cyanide is converted into this aldehyde form. Can you see that? So from D-glyceraldehyde, I was able to generate two new family members with an increased carbon chain, right? So which means it is also a D family only, because you can see that this chain is not disturbed at all. This chiral center is intact. Okay. So this is not disturbed. This is called D-erythrose, right? Sorry, this is threose, right? This is D-threose, and 2 OH on the same side, we call it as erythrose. This is D-erythrose. I hope all of you understood that. So can you see, now initially we started off with one chiral center, now we got two chiral center, so I got two family members here. Again you do the same thing with threose, the same process, HCN, KCN addition, then again I'll get two products with this, I'll get two products with D-erythrose, again I'll get those two will give another 4, like that we can come up to glucose, alright. So this process, let me write down that, this process of increasing hydroxycarbons is called Fischer-Kilani chain lengthening process.